Hello, and welcome to the Argyle HR Leadership Forum, continuous process improvement for organizational success. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have some important information to share with you, and then we will turn the floor over to our esteemed opening keynote speaker. First, we would like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Zendesk. Our sponsors are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booth from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. Throughout today's event, you will also have the opportunity to be entered into a raffle. The more actions you take, the more points you will earn towards the raffle. And the top 10 point earners will be entered into a random drawing to win one of three fabulous prizes. So be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules tab on the left-hand navigation bar to see how you can earn points. We also welcome you to stay socially connected during today's event. For those of you who are active on social media, please use the hashtag ArgyleDigital and follow us on X, formerly Twitter, at Argyle Exec Forum. Also, be sure to follow Argyle on LinkedIn for special announcements. I would like to take a moment to touch on our content neutrality policy, which we have curated based on the feedback we have received over the years from our members. We have worked closely with our speaking faculty to ensure that you receive a set of balanced and neutral viewpoints during the session today, and we appreciate our members' support of this policy. Finally, and most importantly, we want to hear from you. So during each session, we encourage you to submit your questions and comments in the Q&A box on your screen. Following each presentation, we will have time set aside for our speakers to weigh in on your questions. Thank you again for joining us today. Now let's get started. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Ben Eubanks, researcher, best-selling author, Artificial Intelligence for HR. We're super excited to have Ben for his opening keynote presentation titled AI for HR, Surprising and Unexpected Risks and Rewards. Welcome, Ben. Over to you.
Thank you, Nick, and hey, everybody. I'm so glad to be here with you today and look forward to walking through some of the newest trends when it comes to AI in HR. This is the topic I've been talking about for over 5 or 6 years now, and every time I share on this, there's something new, there's something exciting, there's something maybe even a little concerning to share. And so today we're going to try to balance that out, give you both sides of that perspective, and then wrap up with some things you can do practically within your own company to try to make sure you're ready for this. And when I was thinking through this session, one of the things I really want to convey to you is that change is here, but change doesn't always have to be bad. One of my favorite stories to tell around this is if you recognize this, this is actually a high jump pit. I did high jump one time in school. The person who was supposed to do that was hurt that day. The coach said, "Who wants to do it?" And everybody else kind of stepped back and left me standing there like I volunteered. And so he put me at the high jump. I did horribly and I never had to do it again. But I started researching, looking into this as I was trying to do it myself and trying to learn how to do this well. And I found that for decades, when this became a sport, people would run and jump head first, like over the bar forward. And then in 1968, a gentleman named Dick Fosberg came along and he invented the style we see everyone using now, where they run and jump backwards over the bar. It was funny because when he started doing it, people laughed at him, people made fun of him, people thought it was silly. Look at this guy, he doesn't know what he's doing, until he won the Olympic gold medal and they suddenly took notice. In the following Olympics, the majority of the contestants actually used that method that he had put in place as a way to compete. And I tell that story because sometimes we see change as this thing that's dangerous, that's scary, that's worrisome. And with AI, there are some things to be concerned about. We'll get into those. But there's also this unique opportunity to literally, in this case, raise the bar, and for us to figuratively raise the bar and achieve more and accomplish more than we could in the past. As you heard from Nick there, I'm a researcher, I'm an author. I started my career as an HR practitioner and professional, and I love being able to bring unique insights to leaders like all of you to help you do better work every day. So helping you understand what the workforce needs, how companies are trying to adopt technology, what the sort of best practices are around that. That's how I spend most of my time. I've written multiple books that really help to distill those insights down and make that practical and actionable for all of you. Fun fact about me is I'm a dad of 4.5. We have a foster daughter living with us. She is on the verge of the adoption process is almost done. I'm sincerely hoping, at least it's been a while now, we're working with the state, but soon to be data 5, and ice cream is my love language. So if you happen to meet at a conference sometime and you're like, hey, let's chat over coffee, I don't do coffee, but I'll do ice cream. So we'll have a chat. We'll talk about what's latest and what's new and how we can use some of the data to help you. So today we're going to go through how AI is here to help. I'll give you some examples of that, real and practical examples, not hypotheticals, not possibilities, but real things. I'll talk about some of the downsides, the things you need to know. I don't want to be just the doom cloud negative naysayer, but I want to make sure that you have your eyes wide open about what's possible there. And then I'll finish up with a little bit of insight into what are some of the things that you can and should be doing as an HR leader, as a talent leader, to make sure that you are protecting yourself, your company, your people, and getting the most from the tools when you can. As we go through, by the way, if you've got a question, please drop it in the Q&A box. I'd love to address those as we're going through towards the end. I'll make sure and set some time aside for that. So first off, let's get into this. How is AI here to help? Well, you look at the headlines, there's a lot of hype going one way or the other, but what are some realities there? One of the stories I love to tell is this one. So when we think about AI and the ways it's being used, we think about all the generative AI tools. I can use prompts and try to get some answers. I can screen resumes. I can do those other sorts of things. But I love this story because it takes one of the things that is usually pretty administrative in HR and turns it upside down. So if you've ever been in charge of workers' comp, in charge of safety, you know that it's very critical. And at the same time, it's hard to breathe like a new life into it because it just becomes routine and mundane over time. There are companies that are using algorithms, AI driven computer vision algorithms. It's a mouthful to say that, to actually help their workplaces be more safe. Here's how it works. They actually go in and they'll film in some areas of the workplace, and they'll take a leader like one of you and say, look at this and flag any areas you see that are safety concerns. Maybe there's a spill on the floor, no one's cleaned up. Maybe people are walking back and forth in a protected area without their hard hat on. Maybe, like in the image you see here, a person's walking right in front of that forklift and may accidentally get their head bumped because they're in a place where they should not be. They take a person like that, like one of us, to flag those. And then in the future, the algorithm watches that proactively and can flag areas of concern, potential safety issues before someone's injured, before there's an accident, so we can step in and take action. That's a great example to me because it takes this thing, again, it's very routine, repetitive, and gives us a new way to use AI to take care of our people, to literally keep them safe and protect what they need, protect them so they can do their best work every day. There's another area that's really intriguing to me because all the early education on AI was about bias, and that still is a risk. But the encouragement to me is if AI is biased, we can audit it. We can see why it's biased, how it's biased, and what we can do about it. If you've got a manager in your company, and I bet you do, because I've had managers like this when I worked as an HR leader that say, oh, we can't hire that person. They're just not really a fit for us, but they don't give you anything else. We can't audit that manager's mind. We can't see the exact reasons or factors that are causing them to say that. But if an algorithm says we don't need to hire this person, we can go into the why. We can look at it and we can change the algorithm if needed. We can't change that manager's behavior unless we know what's driving that. So AI can help us to see bias and it help us reduce it as well. Let's say you're doing an employee survey. It can look through tens of thousands of words of open text to highlight what people need and let you step in and support them in key areas, not just overall 70% are satisfied or 40% of a problem with their manager. But what if those 40% of a problem with their manager, what if most of them are women? What are the things we can do to step in and really help to support that population specifically? AI can help see that level of insight. It can help us see the skills that our people have at a deeper level, not just their job title, but what they're capable of doing, what their strengths are, what their zone of genius is, and how they bring them their best self to work. AI can let us cut through the noise, see those things, and enable people to do their best work every day. It can help level the playing field when you're giving performance feedback or coaching, when you're doing interviews and screening. Any of these areas, AI can help us to get past the way we've always done it because often there's some bias layered into that. There's a researcher out there that's pulled these together, all the different biases that are known, and there's probably ones we don't know about yet, but there's almost 200 of them when you count all of them up. If those 200 different types of bias affect how I buy bread at the grocery store, then I'm sure that they also affect how we see people at work, how we interact with them, how we perceive them, and how we support them. And so these types of AI help us to overcome those biases. And one last one here I want to touch on, because this is always the story I hear in the news. AI is going to take care of the busy work so we can be more strategic. Listen, I'm a researcher, and sometimes I'm a little bit skeptical. Is that true? Is it really? And so we've actually done research on this. What we find is that's actually true. When we ask talent leaders, okay, your teams are using AI, are they more efficient? Yes, they are. Okay. What are they doing with that time? Are they kicking their feet up on the desk and leaning back and taking it easy, or are they doing stuff? Are they actually adding value? And we find that those teams that are using AI to be more efficient are spending more time showing the business the good things that they're doing in HR. And that gives me a lot of encouragement. They're also really focusing on building those stakeholder relationships. They're making sure they understand what the business needs so they can partner more closely with them instead of wondering, I hope this strategy lands. I hope this new program lands. No, they know it's going to land because they're spending time connecting with them and so on. They're using that time to cut through the busy work that AI is taking care of and focusing on those things that really do matter. There's some incredible insights too we can get from the AI that we're using that honestly blow me away. I was looking at a case study the other day of a company that is using an algorithm on the benefits side, and they were able to actually flag employees in their population that were pre-diabetic, step in, offer them an intervention, offer them treatment, offer them support before those employees became diabetic and incurred a tremendous amount of cost on themselves, on their families, and on the company's health plan. They were able to step in and see that because of the data that they had access to and the algorithms they had access to. So those sorts of things to me are really exciting because it goes beyond just us crafting an email really quickly. That goes to the impact of the work that we do. And that's an area that really matters deeply to me and probably to you as well. Excuse me. I've yet to meet an HR leader that only cares about doing more paperwork. But I know a lot of HR leaders that have a heart to serve their people, take care of them, and make sure they're doing their best so that the people can do their best every day. Now, those are some positives, some good things. But there are also some downsides, some negatives. I'm going to go through some of these really quickly. I'm going to try to make sure I spend enough time towards the end to really give you some idea of what's possible, what are some of the good things, some of the things you can do, because I think that's where our time is best spent. But you do need to know these because some of the stuff that you're going to hear in the next minute or two may surprise you and may actually shock you based on the tools you're using and some of the other stuff that's going on. So AI across the board, there's some good things and there are some bad things. You can see stories about candidates using these tools and it's creating challenges and problems for employers. I didn't grab this headline, but there was a story I read the other day that said candidates are using AI in the hiring process, employers are using AI in the hiring process, and it's ruining everything. Like this, they're just fighting each other and we're not getting closer to a real solution. We have just finished a brand new piece of research and we're looking at how candidates are using AI in the hiring process to sort of game the system to beat employers, if you want to see it that way. And there are a whole range of ways. Everything from the fairly innocuous, hey, use ChatGPT to rewrite your resume to apply for this job and make it sound more like the job description. Okay. But there are candidates that are using AI tools. So if we were doing a video interview right now, I'm reading off the screen off a teleprompter and the algorithm's telling me what to say to make me sound like the best possible candidate. There are candidates right now that are paying a fee to some third-party service providers that will go and apply to 1,000 jobs automatically on their behalf. And I'm hearing from companies whose pipeline is getting really cluttered up, getting clunky because of all those resumes that are fueling in. So if you're one of those companies, you're not alone. I was on a webinar recently with the head of recruiting for EY globally, and she said, we're honestly not sure what we're going to do about this. It's becoming a real problem, and we're kind of worried because we don't have a strategy for how to solve this. Not only that, but we're seeing AI start to eat away at certain types of jobs, both within HR and outside of HR. And that's creating a very real risk for us, not only because of the risk to the profession, but also because we are the people. If this is taking away classes and categories of jobs in the business, do we have a strategy? Do we have a plan for that? And again, I'll give you some questions to ask your own leadership team later on. But here's what I mean by that. When I say AI is starting to eat these jobs, here's what I mean. I'll use myself as an example. When I started in HR, I could not do any of these things. Okay. I could not make a strategic decision. I did not know how to evaluate different options from a high level. I did not know how to navigate executive relationships. Those were skills that I had not yet tested or tried or learned. Okay. I started out in the file room like a lot of people did. doing the nuts and bolts pieces of HR and learning it from the ground up. I learned how to start building relationships from scratch, how to take information we had and organize it in a way that made sense, how to gather data from different sources and try to tell a story. Right? Those foundational skills build up to those advanced skills. Makes total sense. It's logical. But the problem is so many companies, so many people, including I've been guilty of this, are relying heavily on AI tools to do some of those foundational things. Instead of having someone go and gather data, we ask ChatGPT or our algorithm of choice to go and gather that data. Instead of taking the time to build that business case and really argue our point, we outsource that and let an algorithm do that for us. Things that I would have delegated to my HR assistant years ago and given her as a task to start helping her build her muscles and learn how to do HR from the ground up, I may be using an algorithm to do those sorts of things now. And if that's the case, how are those entry level people going to build the right skills they need to be able to do that higher level thinking? This is going to create a very real skills gap where they don't have that foundation and we're asking them to do things at a higher level. And honestly, there's not a lot of answer on this. I was speaking to an AI ethics expert recently on the podcast, and she was telling me this is a very real problem because a parallel of this is that students are being told in college, you cannot use AI for your papers. But once they graduate, we expect them to be experts in AI when they're trying to take a job that's going to use that. And so it's this weird dynamic that's creating, in some cases, a shaky foundation. We're trying to hire someone, and we're not sure if they have that experience themselves. I don't want to derail this too much, but one of the answers to this could be that we end up with something like an apprenticeship in HR in the future, where people are having to do it. They're having to sit alongside, having to watch, just like someone does as an electrician. They walk alongside until they become a journeyman and they're able to go out on their own. We may have that same sort of thing in the future where people in white collar jobs and in corporate jobs are doing apprenticeships. I don't fully know, but I do know that this is a very real thing. Some of the data are showing that some of those entry level types of roles are going away. An example of that in our own bubble of HR is interview schedulers. Junior people on talent acquisition teams in the past for bigger companies just scheduled interviews. That's what they spent their time doing. They learned how to interact with candidates. They learned how to work with hiring managers. They learned those things from the ground up. Today, there's hardly any companies that have interview schedulers on staff because the algorithms, the AI tools, the self-scheduling systems can do all those things automatically without needing a human in the loop, without needing a human interaction. And that's just an example, a small example of how some of these types of work that we've done are going away and may never be done by a human again in the future. Now you may say, okay, sure, Ben, I'll go with you on that, but I'm different. I'm going to hold on to this. I'm not going to give up control. I'm not going to let AI do these things. And I have to challenge you on that because that's not what the research shows. There was a researcher that was working with Harvard, and they actually gave recruiters a set of algorithms. One group got a strong algorithm that was very predictive, supposed to be very smart. The other group got what they called a weak algorithm, not very predictive, not very smart. And they watched to see what happened. And pretty quickly, the natural human tendency to outsource things and take the easy path fell into place. Those that had the strong algorithm, they let the AI just decide what it was going to hire, which people to hire. They just let go. And their term they used for that was falling asleep at the wheel. We just let AI handle it. Those that used the weaker AI that was less predictive, they were more likely to keep their hands on the wheel and continue making decisions alongside it and doing a more interactive process, not just letting AI handle the decision for them. Okay, but the data are showing that we have a natural human tendency to do that, and so that's a risk. I'll give you one more. Okay, again, I try not to be the doom cloud, but I'm trying to show you what's real, what's happening. There's some research that came out from Microsoft in the last week or two that really emphasizes this, but this research from the University of Toronto has been out for a few months now, and it's hardly been mentioned in the news. But they looked at people who use large language models, ChatGPT, Anthropic, Gemini from Google, all these different tools. They're looking at people who are using those. And what they find, I've cut a little snippet out here and highlighted it, is that people who are using these tools are less creative, period. And not only that, but after they stop using them, when they test them again a little later, that lack of creativity persists, which means it continues. They don't grow it back immediately. When you take the tool away, they don't suddenly become more creative. They lose their creative muscle and they have to build it back over time, just like you would if you had an injury and had to recover a muscle over time. it happens very quickly. And then you have to start rebuilding that. And I don't know about you, but when I was an HR leader, I could not have afforded to be less creative, to be less innovative, because a lot of the challenges and the problems we had to face, right, required some measure of creativity to solve for that. So that's a great example of what's happening right now. Some of the risks around AI, some of the things that you need to know that you may be surprised by. So if you're one of those people using these things every day, there's a likely impact to your ability to get your work done. And I'll acknowledge that there's pressure to do more with less, to be more productive, to get more things accomplished, to just put more stuff out there. There's a pressure to do that, but we are sacrificing that. We're doing that, and we're sacrificing our ability to be creative potentially. So the thing that I come away from that is, when I look at all the data I have, all the use cases, we talked about 200 different HR technology vendors every year. The thing that I'm seeing is pretty wild what's possible. So the question isn't, can AI do that? The answer is almost always yes. The answer almost always today for something within the HR realm of influence, AI can do that. But the question we should be asking is, should AI do that? We have always been the keepers of ethical behavior. We've always been the ones that paid attention to discrimination, harassment, and bias. We've always been the ones who have tried to protect the people at work. That's our job, a big part of our remit as HR leaders. And a big question we should be asking over and over and over again, like a broken record, is, yes, I know AI can do that, but should AI do that? So, with all that said, what do we do? Other than asking that broad question, which may get you some puzzled looks at first, what can we do to see AI as a tool? What does this mean for our work that we're going to be doing every day? If it's hampering our creativity potentially, or what does this mean for the work that we're going to have available? I talked about some different types of tasks and roles that AI is going to be automating. What does that mean for us? What does that mean for our future? Well, here's an example of what the research shows gives me hope for the future of HR. Think about this. When you are making a decision on a daily basis in your work, do you know all the variables, every single possible variable when you are making a decision? Probably not. There's lots of things left unknown, lots of gray areas. Okay. Do you have a tight feedback loop? When you make a call, when you make a judgment, when you make a decision, do you immediately know right away if it was right or wrong? If you're playing chess, you can tell, oh, that was a bad move. Look, they just took my piece. But in our daily work as HR leaders, we don't get that tight feedback loop. You may not know for months or ever if that was a good call or not. We make a lot of choices without knowing what's going to happen next. And then lastly, do you have clear boundaries? You know the rules, the the finish line never moves on you. No one ever says, hey, here's what I want you to do, and then changes it later on. Yeah, that's almost laughable. We know all these things are not true for the work that HR does. We have lots of variables we don't know. We have moving goalposts and end results we're looking for, and we don't always know what the result is. Researchers call that kind of environment an unkind learning environment. And what the data shows is it's really hard to teach an algorithm to do those things that you have to do as an HR leader day to day, making those decisions with those sorts of weird boundaries. That is really difficult to teach an algorithm to do, hard to program it to. It's a thing that you have as an edge. You have as a strength that's different from what AI can accomplish. And the kinds of work that there are out there, it's easy to sort of break it down into three big buckets. There's hands work, things that people have to do within HR. Maybe that's something very tactical, like payroll, managing benefits, things like that. There's head work, things that require us to do more thinking. Maybe it's planning, maybe that's analysis of data. And there's heart work. There's work where we are counseling and supporting people. You've got an employee who's um, just got a cancer diagnosis, and they need someone to sit alongside them and help them figure out how the benefits are going to take care of their family, regardless of what the future holds. Those are different levels of work that we can and should be doing in HR. And some of that hands stuff that's more tactical, administrative, some of those things are great for AI to be handling, because it gives us more time for the head work, and especially for the heart work that we can't just hand off to an algorithm to handle. So if you're thinking about this, the thing I want you to think about talking to your own leadership team with, really understanding, what are the tasks, the skills, the jobs at our company that are at risk of automation right now? Because I can guarantee you some of those things are. If your leadership isn't talking about this with you, that's a missed opportunity. You need to be in those conversations right away. For those jobs, those skills, those tasks, what's the plan? Do you plan to continue using people? Are you going to start using AI algorithms? Are you going to start using AI agents to do some of these things? What's the plan around that? There's a story in the news about a CEO who keeps talking about how he's replacing all these employees with AI, and he's so proud of that and so excited about that. Is that your company? Is that who you want to be seen as? Or do you want to be seen as one that says, no, we are committed to personal human experiences because that matters to us? Know where the human element is essential in your business because that is your business as an HR leader. You are the people. And then lastly, how do we get AI blended in? It's not about do we use AI or not? As I said, it's where do we use it? When do we use it? And how do we use it? So that we're getting the most and best results from that algorithm and from the people that we're serving. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick story, and then I'm going to start taking a couple questions because I know we had a couple of those come in here. So years ago, there was a doctor that claimed he could diagnose a certain type of fever that was happening. And all the other doctors were amazed, like, we can't tell who's got this. And this doctor is diagnosing it with almost 100% certainty. So this doctor said, well, come on in, I'll show you what I do. So they all come to watch, and this doctor goes over to a patient that has this fever, they're positive, and he feels their tongue. Then he goes over to a patient who doesn't know if they have it, and they open their mouth, and he puts that same hand in their mouth, and he feels their tongue. It's kind of gross, I know. But he's like, yep, you have this fever. And the other doctors are amazed, like, how did he know? Looking back now, we know he just gave that person that disease. He just gave them those germs and made them sick. But back then, that was seen as a revolutionary sort of thing. People were amazed at this doctor who was so forward thinking. Looking back now, it's ridiculous. And I want you to think about the things we talk about today from an AI perspective. Think about what it's going to be like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. Think about looking back. Are the decisions we're making now ones that we're going to be proud of? Or we're going to think that was completely ridiculous? Why do we let that happen? This is our time to step up because HR has this unique role of guiding the business, supporting the business, but also really supporting the people overall. And that's our area of expertise. That's where we are the best and do our best work. And that lets us really engage and support our people in a special kind of way. All right. So thank you for letting me share with this. I'm going to address a couple of questions here really quickly on that came in a few minutes ago. If you've got another one, please drop that in. About 2 minutes left here before we pass this back to the team. So question one, can you share where we can look at the article about Microsoft that indicates users lose creativity? The best way to look would just do a quick, I hate to say Google it, but Google, it just came out in the last few weeks. Microsoft, generative AI, creativity, you'll start to see some of the findings on that. Similar to the findings from the University of Toronto study, it showed that people who are using these tools say that they feel less creative. Okay, the Microsoft one is actually a survey based, so people say that. The University of Toronto study and others that are coming out, this is the one I saw first, they are actually proving it through experimentation that people in a subsequent assessment, a test of creativity, are performing worse. So regardless of which one you go with, there's a lot of data that are proving those things and showing that the importance there. And then our second question, how long did it take to get back their creativity? So they have not tested that one. In their subsequent test, they just saw that it did not come back yet, but they have not gone back to try to prove how long it takes to rebuild that. The way that I've seen that in some of the own work anecdotally that I've been doing is when I'm using it for certain things, I have to intentionally like shut things off, come back to it, focus. And it's one of those things where if you've taken a time off, I'm a runner. Okay, I've been running for a long time. If I take a time off because of travel or work or an injury and try to come back, it's golly, it's really hard to start that back up again. And it's that same mental version of that fatigue that's going to show up there. All right. One last one. Do you think HR's role will shift based on what happens, policies, processes, people performance are implemented? So HR's role is going to change. It already has to some degree, and it's going to change overall. Some of the tools and things that we are using are going to adapt for sure. And I think employers and people are going to look to us to really think about this in a creative way, not just because HR can use tools, but because it affects the workforce and we are the keepers of the people. So I want to give you the encouragement that that is your biggest and most important job, I would argue, in the coming years, is thinking about work, how it's going to be redesigned, and how we can be leading that instead of just following along and trying to contribute, but really leading the conversation there. All right. Thank you all so much. I'm going to pass it back to Nick to wrap us up.
Great. Thank you again, Ben, for an excellent keynote. And I want to thank everyone else who joined us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. As a reminder, please be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules section to see how you can earn points for the chance to win one of several prizes. Our next session will begin at 11:35 a.m. Eastern Time, which will be a keynote session titled Leveraging Data Analytics for Strategic Talent Optimization. Please click the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected to the next session, and we look forward to seeing you there.